Hi everyone, and welcome to Bluebeam Revu. My name is Ari, and I'm a Bluebeam certified instructor with Digital Drafting Systems. Today, we're going to learn all about bookmarks. We can access our bookmarks by going to our side panel, and our bookmarks button looks just like this, like a little bookmark inside of a book. So we're going to open it, and here we have a few options. You may or may not see existing bookmarks. Sometimes they're imported from CAD and BIM programs, and so those programs will automatically start to organize each of their layouts or sheets, and then essentially they'll be transferred here as bookmarks. So you can essentially use bookmarks similar to using thumbnails. So right now, if I just click on a bookmark of a page that I'm on, and the bookmark was created with the page in its full view, then basically nothing really happens. But now I can use these to essentially switch between my other pages rather quickly. You'll notice that number 4 doesn't quite work, and we're going to learn more about that very soon. And so here's 5, and here's 6. Now, this is redundant because we can obviously go to our thumbnails list right here, and we can switch between our pages like this, so it's not really necessary to have a bookmark per page. But there's much more to bookmarks than that. What we're going to do first is we're going to start from the right side here. We're going to look at Add Bookmark. It's a manual version of Create Bookmarks, which is pretty cool. So what Add Bookmark means is anytime that you are zoomed in on a certain portion of your screen, when you add a bookmark, it essentially just allows you to name it, and that is what the bookmark is going to take you to. So if I did it right now, for example, it just asks me to give it a name. Because I had the first bookmark selected, it immediately puts the bookmark below that one. And there's a drop down here that we'll look at very soon that gives us more flexibility on that. So right now I can call this bookmark test bookmark and then press enter. And it's basically done. It's also basically useless because if I select either this one or the test one, nothing seems to change whatsoever. So we don't really need this one. Now I could right click on it and delete it, as you can see, but instead I have a really cool option called set to current view. So I'm going to do that instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this bookmark to be a portion of the page. Now, I'm going to show you guys how we can associate a bookmark with another bookmark and create it as a child bookmark. It's part of the drop-down right here. We also have add before and add after. But for now, we'll just leave this as its own standalone. So I'm now going to zoom in on this portion of the screen right here. Let's actually go, yes, this is page 1, perfect. So this is great. This is showing the men's restroom and the stairs and a few other rooms here. So this section could be quite important in the overall plan. Let me make sure that it's centered on the view itself so that it is looking nice. Beautiful. Now I'm going to right click on this bookmark and click on Set to Current View. This essentially changes the bookmark completely and fixes it up. So let's test it now. I'm going to switch to the first one, which just shows us the full page. Then I'm going to click on our test bookmark, and there it is. Now let's rename it so that we can understand the context of what we're selecting and what we're navigating to. So I'll right click on it, rename, and I'll call it Men RR and Stair. The stair number is 259. Perfect. Now we know exactly what we're looking at when we click on this bookmark. So you don't really have to delete them, like I said. You can basically set to current view and change them and modify them whenever you need them. Go to bookmark is similar to selecting it. So obviously, if I was just, in a zoomed out view and I right click and I do go to bookmark, it does the exact same thing as if I deselected a bookmark and reselected it like this. So that saves you a step in having to reselect a bookmark. So that's one way to do it. Then we have add, which is the same as the drop down right here. So we can immediately, with this selected, add bookmarks before or after it, or associate a bookmark as a child bookmark to this parent bookmark. So we'll do that very soon. And we've already covered delete and rename, which are pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to skip over action for a second and just show you guys properties. This is really cool because now not only can we rename the bookmark here, but we can also associate a color with it, which is rather neat. So I'm just going to click on the color right here. Let's say that I wanted to make it the color orange, one of my favorite colors, and then I wanted to give it a certain style. I've got italics or bold. Let's make it bold. Why not? And then we'll click OK. And there it is. Now we can really see this bookmark standing out from the rest of them. And each one can have their own unique color, bold, italics, etc., etc. So it's a really great way to customize how your bookmarks look and how you're going to send this file to people and allow them to utilize your bookmarks to navigate your documents, for example. So let's go back and right click on it one last time. And we have this action button. This is really, really cool because whoever is familiar with the hyperlinks tool, which I've made a tutorial on already, will recognize this action dialog, which is essentially the hyperlink dialog. So if you clicked on the hyperlink button, this is the green link right here, and we also have it, I believe, let me check and see which dropdown it's in. It is in the Tools and Hyperlink dropdown right here. So you can always utilize it or your shortcut. And it's basically the same concept, except this time we're associating a specific action to this bookmark instead of just jumping to a page or jumping to a specific region of a page. Now we can jump to a snapshot. We can also go to a hyperlink, which is typically a website. We can also open a file once this bookmark is selected. So there's many, many different ways of utilizing it, just like we would if we created a normal hyperlink on the document itself, except now it's in and on the bookmark itself, which is fantastic. So that's basically what happens when you right-click on a bookmark. We have a lot of options. Now, let's look at this drop down here, which is similar to right-clicking and going to add, which essentially allows us, like I said, to add bookmarks before or after others. Pretty self-explanatory, but just to show you all, because I have this one selected and I'm basically right-clicking on it, I will always add it before or after this one. So I can just go to before and give it a name. So we'll just call it before test. Now, I'm obviously not in the correct view for this, so I've made a bit of mistake. This bookmark is now going to function the same way as this one. So looks like I shifted the view slightly. You can see the screen shifting a little bit when I switch between them. And so let's do an after test. Let's do it over this women's restroom section and these stairs and these offices. So we'll select this one. Instead of right-clicking on it, I'm just going to use the drop-down, and I'm going to do add after. And because I had it selected, it does put it right after this one, which is nice. So this is an after test. And bada bing, bada boom. There you go. And so now we can use these to essentially navigate to different sections. Oh, it looks like actually it did not create the section in this area. And so what we can do now is, after making this one, what we can do is we can just right-click on it after we navigate to the correct view and do set to current view. And that should fix it. Now let's test it. Back and forth we go. Perfect. That's much better. So that's essentially how this works. Let's look at child bookmarks now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this bookmark here, and I'm going to click on the drop-down, and I'm going to do Add Child. Now you can see how this bookmark's name is indented to the right slightly more than the other bookmarks. It is now part of this bookmark, and now there's a collapse menu right here, which is quite nice. I'm going to call this Child Test and enter. And then I'm going to navigate to another portion. Let's say that it was a specific portion of what we were just looking at. Maybe it's just the stairs, for example, and we just want to look at that. So we'll right-click on this. We're going to set to current view. We're going to right-click on it, rename it, and call it Stair 259. Now we can specifically go to the overall men's restroom, storages, offices, and the stairs, or just the stairs themselves. And so that's how child bookmarks work. And like I said, you can always click on this button here to collapse it and hide child bookmarks or open them. And when bookmarks are made automatically, they have their own collapse menu right here. And so you can see how this one, oddly enough, is only collapsing the child, but typically it should collapse all of these, but that's okay. So we're going to essentially move on. Let us now look at some other settings for bookmarks. Before we get into create bookmarks, let's look at the drop-down right here. We actually have this option called save collapsed state, which is really cool. What that means is if I have certain bookmarks collapsed, so for example, maybe I don't want to show certain child bookmarks and I want them to be hidden like this. And oddly enough, this is doing the same thing, which is quite strange. What I can do now is I can save that state so that if I open or close the file and open it again, it's going to keep the bookmarks looking just like this. And with hundreds of bookmarks for large documents, this can make your bookmarks look really clean and make them much more accessible for people that are looking for something specific and they don't want to see every little bookmark that goes to every little detail of your drawing all at once, because it'll just flood the entire bookmark section and there won't be enough space to display everything. So you can just have some major categories ready, and then people can just use the little collapse button here, the little plus sign right here, to open and close the child bookmarks associated with them. So that's how that works. Then we also have audit bookmarks. Here's where we're going to see that bookmark number 4 right here is going to be now audited, and now it tells us that there is a broken bookmark, and it shows this special icon next to it, which is essentially the bookmark icon with a red X on the upper right side of it, and this means that this bookmark has been broken. What happened is that I basically updated page number 4, which is our essentials course outline for training. Let us know if you guys want to be trained personally by me. And basically I uploaded a new version of it. So I deleted the old one, I made some changes, and then I uploaded this one here. As a result, the bookmark broke completely. That's okay, because now that I have this file replaced and I just forgot to update the bookmark, now I can right click here, set to current view, and now it's all fixed. So now if I switch between them, all good to go now. And so that's essentially how audit works. We can also export our bookmarks, which is really, really cool. Once we do that, we can export them as a PDF and then upload them to PDFs as well. So we can basically add multiple files and then export those bookmarks. Let's actually see what happens when we save it. What file extension is it going to be? Ah, good. Very, very nice. So what it does is it basically creates a PDF for us, and each bookmark here is a hyperlink. So this is almost like a table of contents in a way, similar to when we create hyperlinked summary reports in our markups list through the summary button right down here. I've already covered that in another tutorial as well. So this is great because now I can click on these and it's going to take us to that page or that section. Let's actually go to one of the custom ones I made. So let's go to Stair 259. You can see how it's indented because it's a child bookmark to this bookmark up here. And there it is. Now it basically zooms in on it. Because I have my side panel open, it's not quite centered properly, but now it's much, much better the way it's meant to be. But this side panel takes up some space and shoves it to the right. That's okay. Let's also go back here and just test this one. Yeah, the same thing. With the side panel open, it doesn't quite center it in the view. It just kind of moves it to the right a bit. So when we collapse the side panel and we just have the side panel open that was open when the bookmark was made, now we can see it centered just like we had it before. So not too big of a workaround. So that's it. That's how basically we can create bookmarks simply. Let me now show you guys what it's like to use the Create Bookmarks button right here. And we have one more section called Structures, which is very, very interesting. So we're going to get into that right now. Let's look at the automatic creation of bookmarks with this button right here. So when we click on it, we have this interesting Create Bookmarks dialog, and now we have a few options. We can use existing page labels, and before we get into it, we can just see our page labels in thumbnails. So right now, mine are just saying 1 through 6 for all of the pages. So that could be useful. And that's what I did initially to generate the page labels that I had previously, at least for 4, 5, and 6, and I initially had 1, 2, and 3 as well. So that could be quite useful. So instead, we're just going to use page region because I think it's really, really interesting how that works. So what we can do now is essentially select a specific page region. So I'm going to use the title block, for example. That way, if somebody wants to navigate to a specific part of a page and just see what page it is in the title block, we can do that. So I'm going to make a relatively generous box around this, not too big, not too small. A little bit outside of its margins tends to be a bit better. So I'm going to do that. And now we have this new auto mark dialog that pops up, and in the selection it says region 1. This implies that if we click on the add button, we can have more regions, which is pretty cool. Now, look at the preview here. It's actually taking the vector data text that came from a CAD or BIM program, any of the Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint products, for example, and other smart programs. And this may not necessarily work with raster data. Raster data is anything that's scanned or a photograph. So we can see that the preview is showing the exact same text that's in here in order. So it's going from left to right and then top down. So we can see all that text right here. So seeing that I have some extra text here, including the copyright right here, I'm now actually going to basically get rid of this page region, and I'm going to add another one. So now I'm going to fix this one up, and I'm going to choose what kind of data I want here. So what I'm thinking is I don't need the sheet number and title text right here, and I don't need the copyright, but everything in between looks pretty good. So now I'm going to make a different box, and I'm going to make this box a little bigger as well, because I'm anticipating that on other pages, the text here is going to be different, and the page numbers could also expand to the left and the right, and this part is here as well. So I'm not going to make it very, very close like this. This here would be a bit of a mistake for subsequent pages. So instead, I'm just going to get rid of this as well. What I'm going to do, because it keeps making new page regions, so you saw it said page 2 for a second, I'm going to cancel out of it. It goes back to the Create Bookmarks dialog. I'm going to try again. Now that I understand what text is going to go inside of it, I'm now just going to go to the outer extents as much as I can, and now I'm going to collect all this data in here just like that. Now we can see our preview is much more concise and makes a lot more sense right here. So now what I'm going to do is I could add another page region. So if I wanted more text to go after this preview, I could do that if I needed to. In this instance, I don't need to, so I'm just going to say okay. Now that data is going to be used for the bookmark, and it's going to find this on all of our pages in the same section. But does it have to be all of our pages? And the answer is, of course not. So we can see that the page range down here shows all pages right now, but I can type 1-3 just to get the first 3 pages because the other ones are a different size, and so this won't really work for them because that data is going to be somewhere off in the gray section of those pages, so we don't necessarily want to include all of them. Then the page scale here is very interesting. The fit page should fit the page into the view itself. Actual size will leave it in the actual region that I made it. And then there's also fit width and inherit zoom. So you guys can experiment with these and see which one fits your specific purpose. So I'm going to use actual size in this instance. Let's test it and see how it looks. And so we're going to click OK. And now we can see that we have 3 new bookmarks right here. And look at that. Look at these wonderful names that we've got. Now we can use them to navigate to our pages. Now, the actual size, what it did was, is it basically tried to center the page, and you can see that it just went to the top part of this page here. So that didn't really do what we wanted. So we don't really want to use actual size. I'm just going to use the Shift key, select all of these bookmarks, right-click, and delete them. Let's try again, and let's experiment with the different kinds of page regions that we can use. So it's very, very easy once you understand how it works, and so experimentation doesn't take too long. Create bookmarks. Now, page region once again, select. We'll make our nice big box so that we can get any extra data that we may not necessarily see on the first page. There it is. We're going to click OK. The preview looks great, so that's good. Now, selected is still there, so it remembered our settings previously, which is nice. Not all of them. It did revert back to the options part at the top with page labels, so we fixed that, and we got our page region back. Now, we're going to use page scale, and let's try fit page. Let's see how fit page looks. So we're going to do OK. Now let's select our first bookmark, and it basically just goes to each page. So it fits the entire page in the screen. This is basically the same text and the same command as if we were in the center of our page and we double-clicked our middle mouse wheel. This is also called fit page when we do this. There is an actual function for this as well in the program. So if I don't know where it's located up in my dropdowns, which I will reveal that I haven't memorized it because I always use the double click of the middle mouse wheel. I'm going to go to Help, find Tools and Commands, and I'm going to type fit. And there it is. Fit page is right here, so I can access that whenever I need to. And there's fit width, which basically didn't do what we wanted, so we don't necessarily want that. So these could be useful. They're very similar to just using the page labels themselves and just navigating to each page, or of course we can manually do it with add bookmark if we wanted to. So let's actually get rid of these as well, and let's try again. So we're going to go down here, and let's do our create bookmarks automation selection. Good. Let's select our region. Doesn't take too long to do these things, just a few times to see exactly what you want. There we go, looking perfect in our preview. Let's try fit width and see what happens. So we're going to click OK. There it is. And now let's select these. And so in these pages, in these documents that are landscape, it actually works quite well because the width is larger than the height of these pages. You can see the page size down here. So if you're using a landscape page and you use fit width, it is very similar to the fit page option. Fit width works even better and looks a little bit different when you're using a portrait page, such as these 8.5 by 11 pages of page 4 and page 6 right here. So that's where page width would have its merits. So let me delete these once more, and let's try for our last time. So let me just navigate down here. It looks like my middle mouse wheel wasn't moving for a second. There we go, we're fine now. So let's do it again. And page region, very quickly, I will get that once more. And now we're going to look at the last one. Our preview looks great. Inherit zoom. Let's see what this does. So we're going to click OK. And now let me navigate away from this just to see what happens. I'm just going to navigate to a different part of the page. I don't want to have it fully zoomed out because it may do nothing. So we're just going to see what happens. So if I select my bookmark, now it essentially goes to the same zoom level that I was at, but it essentially puts us to the upper left corner of each page. You can see in thumbnails how our red box is basically being placed here. So essentially, that's not exactly what we want, but quite interesting how that works. And what is nice about this is if you do make a mistake here and it's not going where you want, it's not too bad to fix. For example, my intended goal was to basically see this region just like this, basically. So what I can do now is right-click on these and set to current view, and I can just quickly fix them for each one, right click, set to current view, select this one. Let me actually make sure that I got that right. Yes, that one's correct. This one I need to navigate to the bottom left corner, and then we can do that. So fixing these bookmarks isn't too time consuming. Obviously, if you have hundreds of pages, this isn't ideal. So you'll definitely want to consider uh, doing this in a specific way and using some of the other shortcuts here when we use the regular add bookmark function. So right click, set to current view, and now these are going to do what I intended, which is 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Perfect. So that's essentially how this works. Let's see if there's any other settings we missed here. I don't think there is. Nope, we've basically talked about all of them. And so now the last thing we're going to be talking about with bookmarks is, of course, the structures here. So let's get into that right now. Let's go to our bookmarks dropdown, mouse over structures, and you can see that there's a construction documents one that already exists, and this one does come by default with Bluebeam Revu. And we have this structure here with my initials that I was making while doing some tests. Let's make one from scratch. So we're going to go to Manage Structures, and here we can add one by clicking on Add on the bottom right side. And now we can give it a name. So we're going to call it Bookmark Dynamic Structures Test. And I don't need the M to be uppercase for bookmark. There we go. All right, and we can save this if we just basically let it go into whatever default location. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, so we're going to actually choose where it goes. It seems like it does go into maybe a previous folder or maybe deep in. Yep, there it is. It goes into Bluebeam's folder under the roaming Bluebeam software. Yep, so this is a very hard to find folder if you haven't memorized the file path. So instead, we're just going to use our documents folder, and we're going to put this in a specific location. I have a little toolsets folder right here. So I'm going to save that. Awesome. Now it shows that our location is a little bit different, and it's not just showing the name of our bookmark structure. So we're going to click OK. And now it opens up the Edit Structure dialog. Here's something very, very important. If you try to click on Add right now, it's going to say that we're unable to modify the structure because it's read-only. What this really means is we can see it behind us in the back of the list. The structure actually has not been saved yet. And so in order to actually save it, we need to click OK and leave the Edit Structure list. And there it is. Now we have our new structure right here. We're going to select it and then click on Modify. Now when we click on Add, it'll immediately work. We now have a dialog with a little text box cursor that is flashing, ready for us to type in the name of this structure. So now I'm going to show you all how to use the dynamic portion because, of course, we can make our own bookmark structure, which is nice. We can have them all ready. That way we can have the labels ready, and that's fantastic. That's how the construction documents one basically works. It has a lot of different structure names for almost every single discipline that the AEC community deals with. So we're going to give this one a name. Let's pretend that these are architectural sheets. And what we can do is just give it a number after any name that we want. So if I do A1, then that means if I make this dynamic, that the next structures or the next bookmarks are going to be named as A2, 3, 4, etc. I could also go 1.0, and this will allow me to get 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 subsequently. So I can essentially make the 1.0 versions of whatever disciplines I need. And so the architectural one could be ready. Then we could have B, for example, if we do have a discipline with that letter, S for structural, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then E for electrical. So we could have all of those ready, but we don't need to have every single number, just the 1.0 version if we're expecting to have several sheets per discipline. We're just going to do it for architectural for now. And so all we need to do now is select the structure right here, which is essentially a bookmark within the structure. And now the dynamic setting is available. This is not there when we don't have a bookmark selected, or I mean that it's grayed out basically. So we're going to select it. We're going to click on dynamic. And now, just like we did with regular bookmarks, we can add child bookmarks, and that way they're associated with their parent bookmark. We could do that, but I've already demonstrated it, so we don't need to worry too much about it. And that's it. Let's say that we just need this to be our architectural one. So now we're going to click OK, and now we're ready. So how does this work? We're going to click OK again to make sure that everything saves. Now when we go to the bookmarks dropdown, mouse over structures, we can see our new structure is ready to go. Once we click on this, it is now visible at the top of our bookmarks list. If we wanted to, we can switch to other structures. We can also now hide structure. So that was grayed out earlier because there was no structure that was basically turned on. Now we have this one on, so if I click on hide, now it's gone from the top. So I'm going to mouse over it again, turn it on. Now let's use it, and there is a huge nuance to using this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our thumbnails list, and we're going to make a bookmark per section of a page. So for example, why don't we just do the full page of A1, and then we'll do a section of A2 and a section of A3 just to show how it doesn't just have to be the full page, it can be a portion of the page as well. How we do this is the following. We can mouse over the structure here, or the bookmark in the structure, and we can see that there's a plus sign to the right of it. So what we can do now is add the first one. So if this one's going to be the 1.0 page, that sounds great. We're just going to click on add. Now we have a new bookmark down here. If I was on page 5, for example, and I clicked on this bookmark, it essentially takes us to page 1. So it's quite a nice use of bookmarks, although we can always use the thumbnails list for that same purpose, but still. Now, here is the big nuance. How do I basically use this dynamic structure to add the 1.1? Because if I go to the second page and click on add, it's not going to work. It's just going to update the 1.01. Now you can see there's an arrow to the right of it, meaning that we're actually on the page where it exists. So if I go to page 1, now those arrows have completely changed. We do not have the arrow next to this one. These have now changed. So we do have some bookmarks that are on page 1, for example. So how does this really work? Firstly, I'm going to fix the first one. So now we're going to use the 1.01 for page 1. We're going to go to page 2. Let's zoom in on a portion of it. Let's say that we wanted to look at this break section right here. Beautiful. So we're going to center that on the screen. Now, all we need to do, and this is the big moment here, is we're going to double click on the text itself. So we just need to double click, pretend to change it, and now just click on add. And you can see here that it did cycle back to the 1.01. And so we're going to check that and see what exactly is going on here. So let's make sure. So we're going to make sure that that one's updated. Go to page 2. And now if I double click on here, you can now see that it says 1.1. And so now that it's changed the lettering automatically just by double clicking on the text, now we can click on add. And that worked perfectly. Now we have the 1.0 bookmark and the 1.1 bookmark. Now it just adjusted itself. So if I zoom out here, let's go to the 1.01. Good. So it basically, we were on the first page. We happen to be looking at the break room in the same location. So this one I'm going to update right now just by basically right-clicking and going to set to current view. Much better. And now I'm going to go back to the 1.1 bookmark. There we go. We are now on page 2 looking at the section that we were at. Let's try that one more time. We're going to go to page 3 here. I'm going to double click on the structure up here and look at that. It automatically numbers it A1.2. So we don't have to number them. This will save us a little bit of time if we need to do this for hundreds of pages. Now we can click on plus. And there it is. We're now seeing the break section on this page. Let's actually update it to look at something a little different so that we can see our structures firsthand. Let's look at the right side of the building right here. I'm going to go to the 1.21, right-click, set to current view. And now you can see how we can fix any issues that occur, either through mistakes or through the program not being completely consistent when it comes to using these dynamic structures, but pretty good stuff. I'm going to do one more. Let's try it on this page here. This is my old BCI certification page. So actually, we'll go to the new one. I just got recertified. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another one. We're going to double click. And there it is, 1.3 plus sign. Beautiful. Let's test our new bookmarks that we just made with dynamic structures. 1.0 looking great. 1.1 on the break room. 1.2 is on page 3. I thought that I updated it to the right side of the page. Let's see what happens and try that again. Okay, right click, set to current view. Okay, now we're going to test it. Much better. There we go. And now 1.3. And there it is. This is how you can use these dynamic bookmarks. You don't have to create bookmarks for everything. You don't have to rename them manually. So just that double click motion really, really helps. And just as icing on the cake, I'll do it one more time. There it is. And it's remembering which bookmarks were made this way. So it's going to, now if you delete a bookmark in the middle, it will cycle back to that previous number. So this is for 1.4. I'm going to click plus. And there it is. We have made plenty of bookmarks quite easily that are now numbering themselves automatically through that dynamic setting. And that is how we can create dynamic bookmarks in a nutshell. Thank you very much for watching our tutorial on bookmarks and dynamic bookmark structures. Once again, my name is Ari, and I'm with Digital Drafting Systems. Hope you have a great rest of your day.